The main aim of the journey was religious. He was not on an adventurous journey. He was on a religious pilgrimage. Who was Daniel? He was an interpreter. He did not want to join the pilgrimage, but he was a part. He was traveling halfway with the author. Tsetan was a good Buddhist. He believed that anybody died, after that they would have a rebirth. Hello students and welcome to Prep School English classes. Today's session is Chapter 8 from your Hornbill textbook, the lesson titled Silk Road. The Silk Road was a series of ancient networks that connected China and the Far East with countries of Europe and Middle East. This route included groups of spots or stops which helped in exchange of market, trading and also storage and transport. Now this route is called as the Silk Road. This lesson is a travelogue of the author's travel or his journey through this road, wherein he was on a pilgrimage to Mount Kailash. So the lesson describes about the challenges and the hardship that the author faced to reach Mount Kailash. So let's move forward to understand what is the lesson Silk Road all about. So what is that I will discuss today? I will be discussing to you who is the author, what is the title, the theme, the significance of the lesson, what is the moral, who are the characters that we get to see in the lesson, what are the words and the expressions in the text, and what is the summary, a short summary about the lesson, the kind of questions that you can expect, and what is the conclusion that we come out of the lesson. With this, let me take you forward to understand who is the author. So the author, Nick Middleton, he was an awardee of the Royal Geographical Society's NES. And then this extract of the Silk Road lesson is taken from his book, The Extremes Along the Silk Road. So let's move forward to understand what is the overview of the lesson. So the story is about, it describes the author's journey through the Silk Road. I told you the lesson is about the author himself is on a journey to Mount Kailash. He is on a pilgrimage to Mount Kailash, and the lesson describes the challenges and the hardships that he faced. So the central idea of the lesson being journey through the Silk Road, and the theme is about the account of author's journey and experience. So what is the message that we get out of it? It is about nothing is impossible. With all the hardships that he had in between, he still was successful with his pilgrimage tour, with his pilgrimage journey. And when you look at the moral, it's all about determination. So what do we conclude? We say that determination of pilgrims and the hardship they face. For every pilgrim, it's not so easy during their journey. The hardship that they face is what the lesson all about. So moving forward, let's look at the characters. Let's see who are the characters that we get to see. The first one being Nick Middleton himself. It is his pilgrimage, his journey to Mount Kailash that the lesson is all about. Next one is Tsetan. Tsetan is the owner of a car. He drives the author actually, and he is the tourist guide. He is the tourist guide. Moving forward, you see Daniel. Daniel is an interpreter. He was not on a pilgrimage tour, but he traveled with Nick half the way. So he was a travel partner till half the way with Nick. Lastly, you see Norbu. Norbu is a Tibetan who was also on a pilgrimage to Mount Kailash, and he joined Nick Middleton from half the way. So these being the characters, Nick Middleton, Tsetan, Daniel and Norbu. Let's look at a little more details about these characters. So when you look at Nick Middleton, he was a professor of geography at Oxford University and he was an environmental consultant too. So he was a professor in profession. Next is Tsetan. He was the owner of the car hired by the author for the journey and also he was a tourist guide. Moving to the next one, Daniel. He was an interpreter from Lhasa. Lhasa is a place who traveled a part-time with the author. He was not there throughout the journey till Mount Kailash. As a part-time for a certain extent of the journey, Daniel was with Nick. Lastly, you see Norbu. He is a Tibetan working at an academy in Beijing and was on a pilgrimage to Mount Kailash. So these are the little details about the four characters we get to see: Nick Middleton, Tsetan and Norbu and Daniel. So moving forward, let's look at the words in context, which is important. So the first one is Kora. It is a pilgrimage place where the author is set on a pilgrimage to Kora. Drokbas is a nomad shepherd, which you see them, which the author saw them on his journey. Changtang is a plateau there, and then Kyang is a wild asses, and Mas means together. Void are the empty spaces. Gazelles are small antelopes. Moving forward, Pal is a cloud here. Mastiff are those large and strong breed of dogs. Meanders means winding curves of river. And then petered out is gradually came to an end. Festooned means ornamentally decorated. Lurching is moving unsteadily and brackish is slightly salty. Have a look at the words in context. Moving forward, some more to go. Vestiges means remains. Venerated is respected. Sanctity is holiness. Draught is a current of air. Nocturnal is happening at night. Paraphernalia is a dress identifying his profession. Derelict is rundown. Moving forward, first one here, incongruous, totally out of place. Yaks or the Tibetan ox. Envisaged is thought of. Protracting is stretching. Cavernous is like a cave. Tempered means weakened. And hallowed is holy. Please have a look at some more words. Going forward, you will see few expressions in the textbook. Quickly have a look at it. Ducking back, quickly going inside and then coming out. Manors, military exercises, incoming a soldiers, ships, etc. Billowed, filled with air and swelled out. Swath, a land stretched with snow. Kind of rocks, a special place where somebody is buried. Carried down, descending the slope. Salt flats, flat expanses of ground covered with salt. So these expressions are found in the textbook. You need to relate to the context and understand. So these were few of the expressions that you get to see while you read the lesson. They are highlighted in bold. So moving forward, let's see what is the lesson Silk Road all about. When I say Silk Road, I told you the route, the Silk Route is the ancient network that connected China with countries in Europe. What was the connection for? That was mainly for trading and for the markets, especially to do with silk. So that's the reason the route is called the Silk Road. And in this lesson, whose journey are we learning? Whose journey are we looking at? Who has gone through the hardship? Who has gone through the challenges that this pilgrimage? That is the author himself. So, I have divided the lesson into these parts. I will be talking about introduction and the departure of the author from a place called Ravu, and then the Drokbas. Drokbas are what? They are the shepherds. Then how they encounter with the Tibetan Mastiffs. Tibetan Mastiffs are the wild dogs that the Drokbas uses. And then how the ice block on the road hampered their journey. And back on the highway, what happened? What happened on a late evening and the next day? Then Tsetan's attitude. How did Tsetan drop and get back? The author, and who looks for a companion? The author is looking for a companion. And why was he looking for a companion? And thus, he meets a Tibet. That is a Norbu. He meets a Tibetan Norbu, and the conclusion of the lesson. So with this subtopics, I will just summarize the lesson for you. It's important that you read the textbook. So let's start with an introduction. So when you look at Mount Kailash and the author's journey, what is the introduction of the lesson? The protagonist is the author himself. He was heading towards Mount Kailash to complete with Kora. Kora is the pilgrimage. He starts from the slopes of Ravu. He starts from the slopes of a place called Ravu. The main aim of the journey was religious. He was not on an adventurous journey. He was on a religious pilgrimage. In order to embark on this pilgrimage, he chooses a tough route. He did not want a smooth path. He chooses a tough route just to embark this pilgrimage. So, let's look at departure from Rahu. The author started his pilgrimage from a place called Rahu. So what happens? He left Rahu with Daniel. Who was Daniel? He was an interpreter. He did not want to join the pilgrimage, but he was a part. He was traveling halfway with the author. So, Daniel, an interpreter, and Tsetan. Who is Tsetan? He was a tourist guide. He owned a car and he was a car driver too. So, he drove the author for the pilgrimage. So, Lamo, a lady who had provided accommodation, shelter and food to the author, while he was departing, she gave a gift of a long-sleeved sheepskin coat which could protect him from the cold weather. So with this, he started his journey. They were heading to Mount Kailash. Where were they going? The pilgrimage was to Mount Kailash. He took a shortcut and Tsetan said the journey would be smooth if there was no snow. So Tsetan was so used to being a travel guide, he knew in and out of that place. So he told the author that he will be taking him through a shortcut and then the journey will be really smooth if there is no snowfall. So going forward, let's look at what is Drokbas. Now, what are Drokbas? These are the nomads, the people who take care of the flocks of sheep. They were the shepherds. So, what is it about them? They were the nomad shepherds. They saw individual Drokbas. Who saw? It was the author saw individual Drokbas. The Drokbas were all looking after their flocks of sheep, and then there were men and women who were wearing thick woolen clothes. Why were they wearing thick woolen clothes? Because of the weather. And whenever the car would pass by, they would stop and they would stare at the car. Sometime even they would wave off. So that way, the author, while his journey, encountered or happened to see a lot of Drokbas, who are the nomads. Moving forward, encounter with Tibetan Mastiff. Tibetan Mastiffs are very ferocious dogs. Alright? So, the Tibetan Mastiffs, what do you know about them? They are the dogs used by the shepherds. They are definitely ferocious. Whenever the car came close, the nomad tents, they would bark furiously and fearlessly. So, these dogs would bark ferociously and fearlessly, looking at the car whenever the car was passing the tents of the nomads. They would chase the car for some distance and then go back. They were very popular in China's imperial courts as hunting dogs. They were very well known as hunting dogs. Also, they used to exchange them as a tax payment from Tibet. So these are called the Mastiff, who are the dogs that is used by the shepherds. They are very, very ferocious. So moving forward, ice blocks on the road. The journey of the author was not so comfortable. He had to go through a lot of challenges. So at a stretch, the road was blocked with huge ice blocks. So what happened? As they went higher and higher, the turns became sharper and difficult for them to climb. And the author, what happened? He started getting severe headache. Okay, snow started falling and the snow soon blocked the road. There was snowfall and it blocked the road completely. It was not possible for them to move forward. The altimeter watch showed that they were at a height of 5,200 meters above the sea level. And at a height of 5515 meters, 5,515 meters, the atmospheric pressure became very low. And Tsetan opened the petrol tank to release the evaporated fuel. So it was becoming tougher for them to move ahead. Moving forward, they were back on a highway. After a shortcut, they were back on a highway. So what happened there? Late afternoon, they reached a small town called as Hor. Okay, that was a small town, supposed to be a holy town called as Hor. It was at the shore of Lake Manasarovar. At the shore of Lake Manasarovar, they had reached a small town called as Hor. An old trade route between Lhasa and Kashmir. It was popular as an old trade route. This town was in between Lhasa and Kashmir. Now, Daniel, I told you, who was an interrupter, he was not for the pilgrimage journey. So, he got down there and he returned to his hometown, that is Lhasa, from there. So, he was no longer with the author. He got on from the car, he got dropped there at Hor, and from there, he left to Lhasa. Now, Tsetan got the flat tire of the car repaired. So, whatever little repairs were there, like the tire and all, they got it repaired in that small town. Hor was a grim and a miserable place. It was known to be a holy place, but now because of pollution, it was a grim and in a miserable place. No vegetation, just dust and rocks. There was absolutely no vegetation. The place was completely with dust and rocks. That means the soil was not fertile. So no longer appeared to be holy because of the dust. So, after a tedious journey up the hill, they were on a highway wherein author, Tsetan and Daniel are now in a small place called as Hor, and Daniel returned to Lhasa and Tsetan was busy with repairing his flat tire in the car. And after that, what happened? Late evening and the next day. So, by 10:30 p.m., they reached another place called as Darchen. They reached another town called as Darchen. They stayed in the guest house there, and at the end of the road, it was the Darchen town was the dead end of the road. There was no more road which the vehicle can take any pilgrimage from there. Okay, it was a dead end. After Hor, Darchen was the dead end. For anybody to move forward, they couldn't take any more vehicles. They have to walk the path. So author had a troubled night. Why was he troubled? Because he wasn't well. His nostrils were blocked. His nostrils were blocked. He was not able to get enough air into his lungs because he was in a great height and was unable to sleep. So there was a little discomfort in him. He was feeling sick and he was unwell. Who? The author. Now, Tsetan, who was very familiar of the place, he took him to the Darchen Medical College. He took him to the Darchen Medical College, and there the doctor said it was just a cold due to the altitude and he should be okay. So he gave him some medicine and said that he should be fine. So gave some medicine, and that night the author was able to sleep well. So that night over, what happened later on? You will get to see Tsetan's attitude. Now, Tsetan is a typical travel tourist guide, isn't it? So, though the author was not well, he did not want to stay back with the author until he was perfect. Instead, he did not mind even if the author died, but he wanted to go back because it could fetch him a business. On the other side, he was also worried in case the author dies, then what's going to happen is to his business. Also, he thought, anybody who dies had a rebirth. So, he had that in mind. So, what happens is, he had to go back to his next destination, that is his next business route. So, he left the author in Darchen and then went back with a car to Lhasa. Did not mind the author who died. He was a good Buddhist and believed in life after death. Tsetan was a good Buddhist. He believed that anybody died, after that they would have a rebirth, but was worried that the author's death could affect his business. He was also worried if the author dies, what's going to happen? He's going to get a bad name, isn't it? So what happens later? Now the author gets better and he wants to continue his pilgrimage journey. So, he wants a companion. He's not able to do it alone. So, he's looking for a companion and he's also looking for somebody who can converse in English. So, whom does he meet? So, what happens with him? Darchen was dusty and rubbish and was seen all around. So, Darchen was a dusty town once again, and rubbish was seen all around. Sparsely populated. It was very, very minutely populated. No pilgrims as the season had not started. He had reached early actually. So there were not much of people, not many pilgrims who were taking the path. He had reached there too early. He wanted to reach Mount Kailash, did not want to do it alone. So he was looking for someone who could speak English. So, Tsetan left the author in Darchen. Darchen was a minutely populated town, very dusty, and rubbish was seen all around because of tourists. Now, since the season of pilgrimage had not started, he did not find any company, so he did not want to go alone to Mount Kailash. He did not want to continue. So, he was looking for a companion. So, whom did he get? He meets Norbu. Whom does he meet? He meets Norbu. So, what is it with Norbu? When he was sitting in the only cafe at Darchen, a plump Tibetan Working in Belgium at a Chinese Academy of Social Science, he met a young Tibetan, and then he was reading an English book. The Tibetan was reading an English book. He introduced himself to the author, and then he also was there to do Kora. He told him that I am also on the way to Kora. I am also on a pilgrimage trip. So let us do it together. So not a religious person. So both did Kora together. So after that, what happened? The author was not left alone. He got a person by name Norbu, who was very familiar with that place, who could speak English, and he also wanted to do this Kora. So both of them joined together and they continued. So the lesson actually ends here, wherein Norbu and the author continue in their journey. So what is the conclusion? So when you read the lesson completely, it is not so simple as I have told you. You really get to know what are the challenges, what are the hardships that the author really went through during this journey of pilgrimage. So dedication and determination makes anybody successful, isn't it? Determination and dedication both are required for one's success, and a learned man can also give equal importance to be religious. So with this, let's move forward to understand what are the kinds of questions that you can expect. The first one will be your short answer kind. In that, why was the author disappointed with Darchin? Why was he disappointed? Minutely populated, no people around, no pilgrimage season had not started. He could see rubbish everywhere and it was very dusty. And comment on the sensitive behavior of the hill folk. Okay, where is the town of Hor situated? Describe the town. What is the importance of Lake Manasarovar? And then, who was Norbu? How was he different from the local people? That he could speak English, he was learned, he was also something similar to the author. Moving to the long answers, which are for 6 marks. I have told you, no more you will get 6 marks questions. It is for 5 marks. And the word limit is 120 to 150 words. So describe the difficulties and disillusionment faced by the author during the journey to Mount Kailash. What was the purpose of the narrator's journey? What route did he take to reach the destination? And lastly, discuss the accounts of exotic places in legends and the reality. So dear children, these questions I will take it up when I am doing your live interactive class. For now, I have only told you what is the lesson all about. It's very important that you read the textbook, because I have told you there will be a lot of one-word questions that you can expect also. So unless you read the textbook, you will not understand the lesson. With this, I sum up today's session. All I want to tell you all is adventures bring with them a ton of learning, isn't it? I'm sure you all will agree with me. I do not know how many of you are being adventurous. How many of you have tried out going on a trek or kayaking, boating, biking, rock climbing, whatnot? During doing so, most of us would have experienced a little bit of fear, those challenges, those hardships, isn't it? And that has brought us a lot of learning. So with this, dear children, please don't forget to read the textbook. Only then you will get to see the author's actual hardship and challenges that he went through to complete his Kora. So that's it for today. Let me see you in my next week. I will be doing letter writing. Until then, all smiles to you. Bye-bye.